Geniuses are creative, forward-thinking, and brilliant. They produce content or invent theories that change our culture and inspire our world. They don't create mantar. That's right, I'm talking about Vince McMahon. Hold on, don't freak out just yet. We've heard time and time again that Vince is the genius of professional wrestling. No offense to Lanny Poffo, but it's just not true. He's no Einstein, Da Vinci, or Hemingway. He's like George Lucas, except for having one Phantom Menace unleashed upon the world. He's given us thousands. Well, I'm Andrew Socek with WhatCulture.com, and while I realize Vince is successful, I'm here to lay out the 10 reasons why he is not a genius. To start with, he's created so many terrible characters. Think of The Simpsons. That show's been on for over 25 years, but how many characters would you say are absolutely awful, embarrassing, and irredeemable? Yeah, Lisa's annoying, but she's been in some good episodes. Helen Lovejoy is a one-note joke, but harmless, and no one really debates the awfulness of a Dr. Marvin Monroe. Now try and think of one redeeming quality of Beaver Cleavage. Now gaze into the eyes of Bastion Booger. What were the possible long-term plans for Isaac Yankem? And did Vince really think turning Tony Atlas into Saba Simba wasn't horribly offensive? Well, the fact that he was at the top of creative in a company who pushed a character known as Naked Midian should immediately disqualify him from the moniker of genius alone, but then we wouldn't have the rest of the video to get to. Well, besides many terrible characters, he's created many terrible storylines. Let me quote an actual line of dialogue from WWE television. I choppy your pee-pee. Shut down the Emmys. I think the award for best writing on a television drama can never be topped. For longtime fans, they'll remember this from the evil foreign faction Kaientai attempting to chop off Val Venus' member with a samurai sword, but was then saved at the last second from John Wayne Bobbitt, who 5 years earlier, yes, 5 years earlier, had his Val Venus removed from his wife Lorena. That's just one angle, so if you vomit easily, please turn away from the screen or turn the sound off. As we briefly mentioned, Mae Young and Mark Henry's tour affair, HBK and God taking on the McMahons, the Big Boss Man stealing Big Show's father's casket. Okay, actually that one was kind of funny. The Lana Ziggler-Rusev Summer Rae romance, and of course, Katie Vick. Has any other showrunner in television history had a good storyline to bad storyline ratio worse than Vince? Number 8, he pays no attention to details. In 2010, a mystery was born on Raw when the show was taken over by an anonymous general manager. For months, fans speculated on who it was, and WWE teased us with a few clues along the way. This person did not like Bret Hart, and he favored the actions of the Nexus. So who could it have been? Steve Austin, Triple H, Michael Cole? No, because those choices would have made some sense. Vince just said, "Oh, to hell with it. Let's make it a hornswoggle." And then laughed and laughed into the night. Oh, and what about the time the anonymous GM came back for one night after Survivor Series? Vince, it's not anonymous when you already told us who it was. Well, it didn't matter because that was never mentioned again. Speaking of which, how about Undertaker being put out of action by the Nexus? And then later the Shield. Vince getting his job back from the board of directors with no explanation. Shane McMahon getting to control Raw despite losing at WrestleMania. And how again did Kevin Nash text himself from Triple H's phone? Number 7, he screws up foolproof storylines. When is the last time you watched a WWE storyline from start to finish and said to yourself afterwards, "Wow, self, that was a really good storyline. It was well thought through, exciting, and everything is paid off." You'd think with a genius that sort of thing would happen all the time, but it never happens in WWE. It's like we enjoy the stories in spite of how poorly written they were put together. Somehow, the man can't tell a compelling story when a compelling story lands on his $5,000 pants, and I have no idea how much he pays for his pants. Anyway, the WCW invasion. How amazingly easy should that have been to put together? Just sit back and let the money roll in. All Vince had to do was not put his son and daughter in control of the rival companies, not rush through the feud until some big names could be signed, not job out DDP to The Undertaker's wife, and not treat every single WCW wrestler as an idiot. Oh wait, he made every single one of those mistakes. Well, no worries, the NWO came in the next year and there was no way anyone could screw up 2 massive angles like that in a row except, oh damn it. Well, then there's the ECW relaunch that failed, the Nexus running out of steam months sooner than it should have, and Daniel Bryan's amazing rise to the top, which Vince tried to stop at every possible turn. If only this man had learned to book over the years. Number 6, he does not have a good eye for talent. AJ Styles was 38 years old before he joined WWE, Samoa Joe was 36, and James Storm only received 2 matches in NXT before leaving. He could have had any of those guys years ago, but for some reason didn't see anything in them, and only through Triple H's influence were they ever given a shot. Vince once thought Tom McGee was the future of the business. He believed Lex Luger was someone to build the company around, and he had to be talked into hiring Steve Austin. Now take a look at the flip side. Will Vince ever realize that Ava Marie isn't very good? How did the Great Khali remain employed for so long? And what about Hornswoggle? Where is he hiding? Now to make things super depressing, look to the past and see Vince had no idea what to do with great talent that Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff did. DDP, Taz, Raven, Ultimo Dragon, Low-Ki, Mike Awesome, and dozens of others. Despite his reputation for being a star maker, Vince often takes great talent and makes them ordinary. The WWE machine is kind of broken. Number 5, he fails to evolve. A mark of a genius is someone who is ahead of their time, and to be fair, Vince was that way in the mid-80s, and helped pave the way for how audiences saw wrestling, less smoky arenas and more Hulk Hogan on cereal boxes. But after that, he had no idea what to do. When Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior went away, Vince built his company around smaller talents like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. But not so much by choice, more out of necessity. He then surrounded those two with Quang the Ninja, TL Hopper, and the Smoking Guns. But what Vince failed to realize is that his audience was growing up, but he remained stuck in the past. Over in Philadelphia, it was Paul Heyman revolutionizing the business with more mature characters and storylines. Not until WCW adopted that approach and nearly put Vince out of business did he finally catch on. And look at the roster now to see how Vince hasn't kept up with the times. There's Roman Reigns, the handsome, dreamy, but really bland babyface is our top guy, and then there's League of Nations, who are boring evil faction 5000, and then there's Vince, his daughter, his son, and his son-in-law themselves, the stars of the same wrestling show since 1998. Does it get any sadder than that? Number 4, he stole talent to build his company. Okay, so maybe stole isn't exactly a fair word, as all the men and women who joined Vince McMahon did so willingly, except Gene Okerlund. He was forcibly kidnapped by Gorilla Monsoon behind a Taco Bell. I may have made that up, but it is kind of fair to say steal because Vince used the word himself years later when WCW was rating his talent. Go back to the original WrestleManias and try to think of what those shows would have looked like without NWA and AWA talent. No Roddy Piper, Greg Valentine, Junkyard Dog, Bob Orton Jr., Bobby Heenan, Jesse Ventura, Wendy Richter, Ricky Steamboat, and absolutely, positively no Hulk Hogan. It's that last one that makes Tales of Vince's genius so frustrating. He did not create Hulkamania. It came to him hot and baked as a ready-made product delivered straight from Vern Gagne's kitchen. Well, not so much delivered as taken. When Vince did take over from his dad, he didn't use the guys he inherited and made them into stars. He just took stars from elsewhere and made them bigger. It still takes talent, but it doesn't quite take a genius. Number 3, he's blind to nepotism. A true genius running a company would put the absolute best people in positions of power to make the most money. Vince doesn't do this. After all, he has Paul Heyman at his disposal and could easily have him head up creative. But he doesn't do it. He has his daughter and son-in-law as the top deputies. Not very smart. It's called nepotism, Vince. Sure, Triple H would have had a nice career in wrestling had he never married into the McMahon family, but would he have been a 14-time world champion? No. And then there's Stephanie. There's actual physical proof that ratings have continued to go down with her in the role of director of creative writing. Over the course of the past 14 years, what other writer in all of television history would have been able to do that? Oh, and don't forget Steph is a former women's champion, Shane has been in the main event of a couple pay-per-views, and Vince awarded himself the WWF and ECW titles. If my last name was McMahon, I would have at least had like 5 runs of the hardcore title. Number 2, he's killing his own product. When the NWO came into the WWE in 2002, there was a classic backstage segment of Vince McMahon vowing to inject a lethal dose of poison into his own creation. He's basically done that himself over the past 17 years with a different kind of poison. Overexposure. In 1999, the head writers of Raw, Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara, bolted from WWF to WCW, largely because of the addition of SmackDown. There were too many hours of content to produce, and Vince was unwilling to bring in a bunch of new wrestlers to fill that time. Instead, we'd just see the same people over and over and over. The brand split helped for a bit, but due to Vince's failure to create new stars, he put the roster back together and then, for the hell of it, added another hour to Raw. That's 5 hours every single week to sit through. For the past few years, every single wrestler has been overexposed to the point of almost no one feeling special. Matches are rerun time and time again, as if Vince himself is gambling on us not noticing. The fans have. They've grown tired of the commitment, grown tired of the repetition, and just stopped watching. Number 1, he's failed at every other venture. What's your favorite WWE film? Is it the Marine 3 Homefront? How about Leprechaun Origins, or maybe the Paul White Tour de Force Knucklehead? So many great films to choose from. Wait, no, actually none of them have been good. Actually, not a single one could be classified as, okay. If you were trapped at home for some reason and you had 2 choices, you either had to watch a WWE film or stare at a wall for 2 hours. 99 out of 100 adults would choose the wall. How many XFL games did you go to this year? Who's your favorite World Bodybuilding Federation competitor? What's your favorite meal at WWE New York? And how often do you listen to SmackDown records? So Vince McMahon does know wrestling. He's had a lot of success at it overall, but anything else he has fallen flat on his face embarrassingly and painfully. But still, he continues to try, and we'll all watch along in horror as he continues to not learn one single lesson. Well, that's the list. If you think I'm crazy and Vince is a genius, sound off below or share your favorite McMahon failure. I'm Andrew with WhatCulture.com, and you can follow me at Andrew Socek, and it's time to kick out.